Hello, I'm John Furrier, the host of theCUBE, here with Dave Vellante, my co-host. Of course, this is our NYSE CUBE Studios here on the East Coast. Of course, we got our Palo Alto, Silicon Valley, and of course, Boston. We bring you all the signal, not the noise here on theCUBE. Michael Dell is back, CEO of Dell Technologies, in for the first time in our CUBE Studios. Thanks for coming in, NYSE.
Great to be with you guys. Congrats on the new location here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
In the heart of business.
Yeah, and Dell Technologies, a listed company on the NYSE, of course, doing extremely well. Congratulations on the financial performance. I think last time we talked was at GTC at the Dell booth overlooking the beautiful NVIDIA logos on top of the floor. And we talked about the kind of the reinvention again, this wave coming, and it's continuing. Can you share an update since GTC, because so much has gone on with AI factories, agents is hyped up, physical AI, we've been covering the robotics area, every vertical is lighting up, life sciences, financial services, anything where they need large scale compute. What's the update since GTC when we last saw you?
Yeah, I think underlying all this is that the models continue to improve at a tremendous rate, and you see this sort of broad range of open and closed models and lots of companies participating at that layer. And as it kind of moves from the one-shot LLMs to the multimodal to the agents and multi-agent systems, the amount of tokens just expands tremendously. And so you've heard about 100x token growth and that sort of thing. All that means that data is becoming more valuable because it's the fuel for these AI factories, and the demand for compute is maybe insatiable, right? We can say it that way. We don't see any slowdown in that demand, and for us it's coming from not just the tier 2 CSPs, it's coming from sovereign AI, it's coming from enterprise AI. I think we're still in the early stages of the S-curve adoption of how this is being used inside companies.
The consumer side of the business and the enterprise side with AI, you see obviously OpenAI and all this consumer activity, their user behaviors changed. The enterprise side is expected to be massively growing. Arthur Lewis was just on theCUBE. He was talking about some of the decisions you guys made years ago that are paying off now. I want to ask you the same question. What were some of those key things that you decided that kind of fitting into the AI factories and soon to be a surge in enterprise growth as full stack new ecosystems are developing? What's the keys that you guys did that puts you in such a great financial performance?
We've always been a company that's had big ears and listened to our customers, and we started hearing about the demand for these GPU servers, and we kicked into gear and started designing the original H100 systems. And we were first to deliver the GB200 at scale, now first to deliver the GB300. And the engineering effort required to deliver these kinds of systems is getting much more complicated. And so we've just thrown whatever resources are needed to support the enormous build out that's occurring. And as I said, it doesn't seem to be slowing down. To be honest, we're watching for any signs of change in the demand pattern, and it seems to just continue to be.
Yeah, we've all lived through the cycle, so you've I sleep with one eye open. You called it an S-curve. We had Eric Binyalson on last week, the economist. He thinks it's a J-curve, which is kind of interesting. And just to support that, I think 2 years ago at the securities analyst meeting, you guys said we expect a couple $100 billion to be spent on CapEx. It's now well over $400 billion. Something you said on the BG2 pod really caught my attention when you said, think about it, because people are asking you, are we overspending here? And you said, well, it's a $115 trillion economy. If we can get 10% productivity improvement. Right. We're underspending.
We could be way underinvesting.
And so, and again, you do watch for those signs, but you said today there's really no evidence of those signs. You've seen them before. You're watching very closely, and so there's no end in sight.
Customers are deploying and using the capacity that we provide them instantaneously upon delivery. And they want it as fast as they can get it. They're usually gated by power availability to the building. And I think that could continue to be a constraint for a long time to come because it just takes time to build all the power generation capacity. But I again, go back to where we are in the adoption cycle and the number of tokens that the new systems are using, it feels like this has a long way to go. And again, there's been this fundamental shift, right? The first 50 years that we all participated in was about calculating and computing. And now we've had this fundamental shift into thinking, machines that are thinking and helping us think and thinking for us, right? And that is just a fundamentally different architecture. That's why all these new systems are being built. And the demand for intelligence and thinking is probably the biggest market there is, because if we show up at a company and we say, we've got this new thing, and if you use it, all of your people get 15 more IQ points. They want that because it's going to make them a more successful company. They can't afford not to have it, particularly if their competitor has it. And so that's what I think it's just a fundamental shift.
I think too, the vectors of growth here are quite interesting. You got CSPs, you're crushing it there. You've got sovereign, then you've got enterprise, and then even beyond that, you've got edge. And those are four related but somewhat distinct growth opportunities, are they not? And what are the differences in terms of what you have to deliver, what Dell has to deliver for customers in those areas?
Yeah, I think those are all key demand drivers. And again, in the enterprise and at the edge, there's an architectural shift that's very significant, right? In the past, we had these siloed databases and independent systems, and there was no reason really to bring all the data together because nobody had anything, nobody had any tools to do anything with it, right? And so now we've had this big unlock of the power of that data, and so there's a big re-architecture going there. I think it'll occur in all four of those areas, and it's a big build.
One of the things you said years ago on, I forget which Dell Tech World it was, you were really talking about the end-to-end workflow, owning the end-to-end workflow, which you've done that. On your slides, one of the big kind of the endpoints in the growth is physical AI, okay, which is going to come after agents and some other things. That's the full convergence of physical digital. How do you see the edge playing out? Because right now inference on the edge is hot because devices can do that, but training's not yet there. So you're going to start to see smaller, faster, cheaper, smarter devices the size of a fire alarm that's essentially an AI factory node. Has your edge vision changed at all in terms of how you see the dots connecting? We get through reasoning, we start thinking, multi-step reasoning, into agents, agentic infrastructure, physical AI. What's your view on the edge as you look at that piece of it? Because it has to get smarter, it has to be connected.
I think the key point is that the intelligence is going to go where the data is. And if you can shrink the model and the system to be something that's super small, and it's in a robot, it's in anything that has electrons passing through it, and as there's data created, it somehow enhances the experience, at the right cost and value equation, you're going to go do that. And that feels like just a fundamentally big change that we're at the beginning of. And we're definitely seeing, I mean, the early adopters are things like advanced manufacturing, and it's clearly happening there. But I think that's just a precursor to everything becoming intelligent, connected with these small models. We've been working on this for a long time. We have our OEM business, our embedded business with like 10,000 customers across every industry. They're the precursors to this.
Yeah, and
so, go ahead, please.
On customers, I want to get your thoughts on some of the unlock. One of the things we're seeing and observing with this AI Factory and all the series we're doing is these verticals that are exploding. Financial services are always buying the best and greatest, so they're always a good, happy customer. Supercomputing's coming up. That used to be an HPC show. You guys were always active in that, but now it's like an AI supercomputing show. Actually, the name of the show is supercomputing. It's actually doing supercomputing. But life sciences, healthcare, these are verticals we're seeing massive breakthroughs from the new architecture. Are there any examples that you're observing that's growing faster than others as you talk to customers and look at the landscape? I mean, pharma, drug discovery, to healthcare. What's your view on the people who are like seeing this kind of bandwidth, this kind of compute power, and like just using up capacity and wanting to buy more? I mean, this seems to be the pattern. Like, I'm done, I need another upgrade, I need more systems. Which verticals do you see most innovative?
What I would say is that we're seeing it's more variable, and within an industry, you have leaders and laggards. But kind of across all sectors, we do see certain companies that have just approached this as an existential, crisis / opportunity, and they're being super aggressive. But I would say that's only maybe 10% of companies. So, I think all companies will get there over time. Financial services is an obvious one. It's accelerating drug discovery. I think anybody doing design work, right? I mean, if you're not using these tools, you're going to fall behind pretty quickly. There are, clear examples in customer service and sales, and again, it's all about how do you make people more capable, more productive, and be able to grow and expand faster, innovate faster.
So you have a point of view on this because you're one of those early adopters. You're not only an AI technology seller, you're an AI practitioner. You kind of alluded to it today in the securities analyst meeting that you're kind of just getting started with harmonizing the data as you talked about earlier. So what can we learn from Dell as the Petri dish and take to the market and how that's going to evolve? Because it sounds like you have a lot internally, a lot more runway.
Well, what we've learned is that, if you just look for an AI thing to plug into your company, you'll probably fail, right? And there's a lot more fundamental work that has to be done. First thing you have to do is use your imagination, which is to say, all organizations are sort of a relic of whatever architectural, archaeological technologies were available at that time, right? And so you sort of say, well, yeah, we had slide rules and calculators and computers, and so this is how we set up the organization, right? Now, as we have these models and agents and multi-agent systems, what could it be in 3 or 5 years? And then what should the process in the organization look like? And let's first understand that. Let's simplify, standardize the processes. Let's get all the data together. Let's then apply the AI models, and we'll have something that comes out very different than the old thing we had. That's not an easy thing to do, and it often requires a lot of undoing of things that have been there for a long time. Not everybody wants to do that. That's hard, etc. That's what we're doing. I think more companies will find themselves down that path, and we do have some help that we can provide companies as they go through that process. And we've created, these blueprints and reference designs and starter kits. We've got hundreds of them now across all sorts of industries to help customers and our partners to get going on this road.
And the key point there is you're not paving the cow path, I like to call it. Just paving over existing processes. You're really rethinking, and that takes time.
There are well-known, well-established playbooks for how to do this, and we're continuing to develop those and propagating them, among our customers.
One of the unique things about you guys, I always admired, Michael, is one, you're a thinker. You're always tinkering with all the latest and greatest since day one, always reinventing whenever you can to get ahead of the curve. We've been having a conversation on theCUBE with folks who have to struggle with this, not struggle with, but rationalize what am I optimizing that I have existing for AI, and how do I bring in AI native software? Software stacks, whether that's running on new Dell AI factories or previous Dell stuff. You have a lot of installed base, and it's clear that the existing workloads aren't going away. In fact, that's where most of the AI is being applied to in a methodology and playbook. But there's also the AI native wave coming, where people are writing software for the capabilities of the hardware or supercomputer, call it a data center, it's a computer, okay? But I'm going to write software, I'm a startup, I'm going to be LLM first, computer vision first, a little bit different coding kind of mindset. So how do you think about those two worlds? Because I think that's a big observation where there's no wrong answer. If you have a workflow you can make more productive, the ROI speaks for itself. But there's a wave of new entrepreneurs coming in, doing AI native, they call it, where they separate the app stack and they treat the model layer fundamentally like a flywheel, and they'll pick whatever model's best at any given time and fuse it together and then have underlying infrastructure. So there's different approaches. I mean, there's no one winning general purpose formula. But how do you think about that? Retrofitting, my word, but and AI native.
I think there's some related points that sort of go with this, and that is that the rate of creation of new code and software is going to be increasing quite dramatically. And the reason is it's way easier to create software and code than ever before. And so you're going to see some changes in that landscape. And ultimately, why are people creating this code? They're creating it because it's an expression of their competitive advantage. And it will be more rapidly tuned and applied to their business so that they can succeed as an organization. But that's pretty different than what we had before. So it'll take some time, and it'll be a multi-speed race. Some will go faster than others, but I do think this is
You see code acceleration coming as a key differentiator.
Well, you can create more code. It's easier to. You don't necessarily have to speak code. You can just speak English, right? now you have code, and so. That's a game changer in terms of how does a company actually have technology that helps it achieve what it wants to achieve.
Dave and I always joke when the old PC revolution, the 286 went to the 386 and Windows runs the same because they added more features, or 486 comes, those processor improvements. Now it's like such a systems increase that there's new ways to do everything. I mean, so the software gets better. I mean, that is clear.
If you think about, again, inside of Dell and your customers, the way that you're applying essentially software to reformat, restructure your entire business, do you think that learning curve dynamics and software-like economics will increasingly apply to not just software companies, but to all companies? And does that set up like a winner-take-most dynamic? In other words, if I'm on the learning curve faster and I'm getting software-like marginal economics in my business, not just my IT, I'm going to beat my competitors because I'm going to be ahead of them. And we saw this in the software industry in the 80s and 90s. Does that move to every company and every industry?
I think another way of saying this is the role of technology continues to increase in the economy.
Sure.
And it's for the kind of reasons that you're suggesting, that network effects and software and data are able to be used to improve virtually anything. Mm-hmm. And it is a sort of quicker dead kind of thing in many industries where you're either adopting this and creating a competitive advantage, or you're falling behind in a faster way. And look, the rate of success or failure is increasing, right? So there'll be more disruption, and you'll have a greater range of outcomes for companies. So if you look at any 5-year period, the number of companies that either succeeded tremendously or failed horribly, it's increasing every 5 years. And this is only going to speed that up. So it's Schumpeter's, creative destruction, just turbocharged to the max here.
Yeah.
And I think it's not going to slow down. Yeah. It's not going to be slower 5 years from now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? We'll have new waves of technology that built on all the things we're building now that'll just make it go faster.
Michael, thank you so much for coming on theCUBE, especially in our new location. Always like to end it on a fun note. What are you optimizing for these days? I mean, if you look at it's like a kid in a candy store right now, this market, all the action on the hardware and the system side, the software, productivity, it's like a whole refresh. What are you optimizing for these days? How do you spend your time? What are you working on?
Yeah, what Arthur and Jeff and I and our colleagues at Dell have really done is we've viewed this moment as a reset, and we've said, what could our company actually be if we completely reimagined everything using this technology, and that's what we're building. Because that's the company that's going to succeed in the 2030s. And that's incredibly exciting.
Yeah. Thanks so much for coming on, appreciate it.
Okay.
All right,
Thanks.
Michael Dell inside our new CUBE Studio, as part of the NYSE and CUBE partnership and the NYSE Wired program and community, of course. We're doing our part to bring you all the data here. Thanks for watching.